The Trailer Talks is sponsored by Imaging DNA. Ideas, images, insight. The core of the conversation is the image at imagingdna.com. Ever wonder what it takes to live a life creatively? So do we. That's why we're here, to find out what clever people do to succeed in the arts, education, and business. I'm Cecily Korst, and this is the Trailer Talks. We're interviewing artists and educators, musicians and actors, at home and on the road. So come on, it's going to be a good trip. Hey, welcome to the trailer. Come on in. Today, we're on Skype with Alicia Long. She and Jayne Jones co-authored the award-winning novel Capitol Hell. Let's hear her story. So, reading your book was like, it was like, unless you've gotten a resume of mine, you would never know that I was a staffer at one point in time too.
Totally, you were probably having like flashbacks.
Totally, I was like, even in just the first chapter, I'm going, the tea.
We love to hear that though. We get so many people who they've either been former staffers, or they've just had a tough boss and they've worked in a different situation, but everybody's had that tough boss, so everybody can kind of relate, to having to do these crazy things.
Right. Yeah, I learned that the sports section goes on the outside of the newspaper.
You have to have it folded just right. He doesn't have to can you imagine having to turn newspaper pages yourself?
I can't.
To get to the information you want?
So hard.
Taxing.
and you went through 3 of them.
I did.
Was it like pregnancy? Did you forget the pain of the first one?
I've never been pregnant, so I can't speak to that. But it was very interesting because all 3 had very different personalities, and some were certainly tougher than others. So I will say this: I had it very tough with certain members, and maybe a little bit easier with other members. So it was good because I got to see kind of the bad side of politics, and I got to see the really good side too. So it was kind of a blessing because I got the full, a whole round experience.
So your journey, you went from college directly to the Hill.
Yes.
And then you escaped or graduated.
I did.
And then you went back to school.
Yeah, so exactly what happened was while I was in college, I had ended up switching my major to political science. I got super interested in politics, and we had always kind of talked about politics when I was younger. But I kind of really got involved, and I started working on Senator Coleman from Minnesota on his 2002 Senate campaign. And so that's when I got involved, and he actually got elected. I think I had like a year and a half left of college. So they were kind enough to kind of take their chance on this very eager breather, young girl. And I started working in his state Senate office doing some constituent services stuff. And then after I graduated, all I wanted to do was to move to D.C. and kind of see the hustle and the bustle. And they ended up moving me out and hired me as scheduler. So I did that for a year. And then Senator Thune from South Dakota had gotten elected to the Senate. I'm actually from South Dakota. So he had legislative positions open. Senator Coleman didn't at the time. So I kind of hopped ship and went and worked for the member from South Dakota and put in my time there. And then also had worked on Senator Allen from Virginia from his Senate campaign. And then, decided I kind of had my fill of the Hill, if you would, and went to law school.
Because you didn't have enough going on.
I didn't have enough on my plate, but I will tell you this. The Hill was great for law school because, you've probably read, seen the movies or read the books or whatever, and it can be very intense. But it was great because I was like, I've already been hollered at by U.S. senators. Like, I don't care if this law professor's yelling at me. Like, it just kind of, it's like water off a duck's back at that point. So it toughened me up, and I got very good at managing my time, which was also a useful skill to have in law school. So it was good. It was good preparation. And I learned to pay attention to detail, which is also important.
Clearly, yes. ATD. We're going to have all of these inside little things that other people may not know, and all I'm going to have to say is read the book, guys.
Read the book. ATD. ATD. Very important.
Right. So you wrote the book how many years after you left the Hill?
So I left the Hill in 2007 when I started law school, and I would say it maybe had been about 6 months. And, I kind of would tell friends, Jayne and I had always kind of talked about our adventures on the Hill. And friends would always be like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe these stories. You have such crazy stories. You really should write them down. And we were kind of like, yeah, whatever. We don't know that we're really, writers, and we wouldn't really know how to go about this. And, we kind of blew them off. Well, finally, it was after my 1 year, I had, winter break. I think I had like a month off to do nothing. And so I sat down and decided, because at that point you're so used to being busy, you gotta like, keep it going. So I decided just to write the first chapter. I wrote it, I sent it over to Jayne, and she was laughing out loud. She added her take to it, sent it back to me. I was like, oh my gosh, I love how you added to it. And then she wrote chapter 2, and I did the same thing and sent it back to her. So we literally piggyback like that, back and forth, but it took about 4 years. And the reason it took so long is because I was, law school's 3 years, so school started back up, and I was like, no more writing, I'm in school. And so she also, worked full time, so we would kind of pick it up and put it down and pick it up and put it down. And finally, once I had graduated, we were like, that's it. Like, it was over halfway finished at that point. And so we were like, we just need to grind it out, get it done. And we did.
Very
so the
cool.
rest is history.
Love it. It's awesome.
Oh, thank you. We love hearing that.
So that's your creative process. I mean, really, what tipped you over the edge to to write it? You had a month off. Come on, you could have been.
I was in law school, so I had no money, so I couldn't go on vacation. And at that point, I think it was almost like cathartic to write, because you kind of got to relive, part of me really missed the Hill for one. So it was a way to kind of reconnect with that, because I was back in Minnesota. I was no longer in D.C. When I left D.C., it actually was very hard. I was very, very happy here. I had a lot of good friends. I liked my job at the time. And so it was tough to leave, but I was kind of ready just for that next step. And so in some ways, it's like I kind of got to relive my time on the Hill. And at the same time, we decided to do it in a fiction way. So we got to kind of spice it up, too. So it really was a lot of fun. And it was so different than like the technical legal writing that, I would do on a day-to-day basis. So it just ended up being a lot of fun, and I got to do it with my best friend. So, you can't beat that.
Have you gotten in trouble at all for writing?
No, not at all. I think probably because we decided to write it in a fiction manner, and because we did kind of pull, our goal was not to write this vicious, mean tell-all that, was meant to be this horrible thing. Our goal really was to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit, to give readers a little bit of a glimpse, but to keep it fun and lighthearted, and to say, the Hill is kind of this ridiculous place, and there's kind of this side to it that you don't see when you're watching maybe the typical political thrillers, right? Like, everybody knows about the congressman, everybody knows about political deals, everybody knows about things like that. But you don't really get to see what the staffers go through, and you don't really get to see that it's run by a bunch of 25-year-olds who are running around with chickens like their heads cut off, trying to do the senator's laundry and, get a bill to the floor and, trying to respond to the constituent that calls in every single day. So that's kind of the side we wanted to show, and I think we were able to accomplish that.
So what's been the hardest part about writing the book?
Oh gosh, I don't know if hardest is the right way to describe it, because I think everything we do is a learning experience. I would say the thing that maybe caught us by surprise is, we found a very small independent publisher in Minnesota to publish our book. We didn't find a Simon & Schuster. We didn't find a big-time publisher. So we've been kind of surprised about how much promoting and marketing we've had to do ourselves. But it's been a ton of fun. We've set up a ton of book signings. We've been to, last count was like 18 or 19 states. So we've really kind of made the rounds, and, we've been, a lot of those campaign skills or those political skills we had, writing press releases and, putting things together really kind of have come in handy, because we've kind of pulled out and recycled those skills now into book promoting. So instead of promoting a bill, we're promoting a book.
Excellent. How do you fit all of that in?
I made Jayne do all of it. No, I'm kidding. It's I don't think either of us sleeps very much. I think we each get between, maybe around 6 hours a night. And really, truly, it's something that couldn't be done without my partner in crime. I mean, she and we met actually on Senator Coleman's 2002 campaign. And so we met in a working situation. We actually shared a desk and shared a computer, so we got very used to working in very tight quarters. And because of that, we just became very, very good friends. She likes to say we share a brain, and I think there's some truth to that, because we do kind of think the same way. We tend to make kind of the same decisions when we're looking at something. We tend to analyze things the same way. So, she can put something together. I'll do very little editing to it before it goes out, and vice versa. So we just work really well together, and, we know. I think there's sometimes where, she's doing the lion's share of the work because I'm just slammed into it. And she's so great because she's not like, you're not pulling your load, or we just understand each other's schedules, and we try to accommodate one another. And really, truly, I don't think I could have done this with anybody else.
what was this past year's pinch me moment for you?
Oh my gosh. I probably the biggest thing, the first one we actually had gotten an interview on CNN around last Christmas. So that was the first time we had made kind of national news or national TV news. Literally, they fly us up to New York, which New York is just exciting to go to, even, just for a trip. Like, it doesn't matter why you're going there. It's just an exciting city. And we got there, and they had, like, a car pick me up at the airport. And, like, this poor driver, I'm like, and he had, like, the sign with my name on it, which I was so excited about because, I, like, either drive myself or take taxis. I mean, I metro to work every day. Like, it's not, So, and then they put us up in this very nice hotel right across from the studio. And I got in, and we had gotten in late. And so they were like, oh, well, your room is booked. They're like, so we'll have to put you in the suite. So I get into this, like, gorgeous it was, it was huge. It was, like, this penthouse suite that had, like, 2 floors. And, like, I was, like, kind of the idiot, like, putting on the bathrobe and, like, jumping on the bed because I thought, this may never happen again. So that was probably the biggest one.
If you were to, beyond your wildest dreams, what would be the next pinch me moment for you?
Making the New York Times bestseller list. No, I don't know. I mean, that would be a big one. I think we constantly kind of have pinch me moments throughout this because things will kind of die down and then we'll get like a big, media break or something like that. Another pinch me moment, this had happened earlier before, I think the interview with CNN, but we had just started kind of going on our book promotion tour and we went into a Cheesecake Factory right before a book signing just to grab a bite to eat. And we always, whenever we do these book signings, we have on like our Capitol Hill garb. So we had, picture of the cover of the book and it said Capitol Hill. And we went to the hostess to be seated and she was like, oh, I've heard of that book. And she's like, is it? And we were like, wait, you've heard of this? So we were totally, I think we constantly kind of get these pinch me moments because we don't necessarily expect, we never expect to be recognized or for the book to, people to necessarily say like, oh, I've heard of that. So I think every time I hear that, I'm like, you have? So I don't know that it will ever end that we have a pinch me, stop having those pinch me. But I think it's good. It keeps you humble. It keeps you grounded. And I think that's always important. So,
yeah. What's the one thing that you think everybody should know about living a creative life?
You should do things that inspire you. And I think for everybody, that's something different. So whether it's going to the theater, whether it's taking your dog on a walk every night and noticing, the nature and taking different paths, or whether it's going out to different events and just constantly meeting people. I think we all draw inspiration from different things. And I think you should figure out what inspires you most. And you should go out and do that. Because I think that's going to help you, to get your creative juices flowing. And then, if you want to do something like be a writer or do something artistic, one of the things, especially if you're a busy person, because I think a lot of people don't have the luxury of being like, that's it, I'm going to quit my job, I'm going to write a screenplay, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to do, produce a movie, whatever. A lot of times you have to work at least a side job and, because we all need to eat and live. So I found that, trying to schedule certain times, each week or every other week, whatever it is, whatever you can fit in, and then trying to stick to it and trying to treat that also like a job so that you end up doing it also helps you to kind of channel that creativity.
Well, hey, thanks very much for being on the Trailer Talks. Even though we're not in the trailer, we're in the studio, but that's the way Skype works so much better here than in the trailer.
No, I'm sitting in my kitchen, so I gotcha.
Fair enough.
So just, pick up a copy of Capitol Hill, and hopefully you'll pick it up and laugh and love it and read it. And I always like to say, pass it on. I don't care. Not everybody has to buy one. I just want people to read it and have fun with it and, hopefully have a good time with it and pass it on to the next person.
That was a peek inside of Alicia Long's life and journey. You can learn more about Alicia, Jayne, and their novel at capitolhillbook.com. We'd also like to thank the generous sponsorship of Imaging DNA. Find out more at imagingdna.com. While you're out surfing, check out our website, the trailertalks.com. And there it is. Nana. I'm Cecily Korst. Join us for the next road trip. Did you know that we're a podcast? Does that not kick ass or what? It's really hot in here, so I'm going to open the window and stop talking like an announcer, even though that's what I do for a living. tautness.